Hi guys, welcome back. In the lead up to Christmas, obviously the January transfer window is fastly approaching. So me and Jamie are going to have a quick chat about what players we think Cardiff City need to bring in and what would make a real push for the second half of the season to continue and stay on top of the league. How are you doing, Jamie? Okay?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Isn't it great? We're going through a phase now of our own little Christmas list, isn't it? Who do we want? What areas can we probably strengthen? Albeit where we are currently sitting atop the league. And what areas probably we need to look at, maybe outgoings as well, because I think we've probably got a few players that we know that either are unhappy for their lack of game time or just probably need it to go for their development. So what position do you think is probably the most important that we need to strengthen?
I think it's a position that a lot of people thought that we needed back in the summer. And that might have changed in a lot of people's minds now, because it's definitely changed in mine, but that was left back. I thought in the summer that bringing a left back in, and it could possibly be a starting left back ahead of Joel Bagan. But we've seen how good and how reliable he's been this season, and I think that spot is his. I want to see him starting there. I wouldn't want to see a new left back come in and start over him, because I think he deserves to have that position his own. But it's fair to say we got a lack of cover there if anything was to happen to Joel Bagan. So I think obviously we've got Louis Giles, but we know that Barry Murphy's already spoke about him being a possible player to go out on loan. So yeah, I think for me, I think a player who's happy to play second fiddle to Joel Bagan at left back, just for that blanket, just in case anything happens to Joel.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the big thing, isn't it? Is we know when you look at the fixture list from the festive period into January and going on, it's quite a cluster of fixtures, and the last thing you want is an injury to somebody that, even BBM said yesterday is very vital in the way we play going forward and defensively. And something that we've always said is consistency, and he's been very, very good this season. The worry for me is, to our knowledge, there's no contract talks as of yet, and he is one of 4 that are out of contract in summer. So does somebody come in January and offer him a lucrative deal or a deal because they can? Obviously, that's the biggest thing. I think for me, we've got some good centre-backs. I'm not too worried about that, because obviously yesterday, as we speak, the game against Doncaster, I think, was a bit of an anomaly, conceding 3 goals in the manner we did. I think we need something different at number 6 in that 6th area. I know we've got Chambers who can possibly play there. We've got Wintle, who is really, really strong, and he's delivered again, just like Joe Bagan this season. He's come back and given a new lease of life. But he can't do it all himself. And naturally, for someone to play so many minutes, you need them to be at optimum fitness. And it's a tiring game. We're the first ones as fans if someone's walking or looks tired to be saying, get them off, they're tired. So maybe the number 6, I think, is somewhere we can look at. Maybe Barry Murphy can use his connections somewhere like we've seen with Amari Kellerman. But number 6 for me is definitely somewhere I'd look at. What about yourself? Anything else?
No, I mean, I like your point about the 6. Obviously, it didn't naturally come to my mind because Wintle's had a really good season. But this system that we're playing is really working because of the type of player Wintle is. And we haven't got another one of them, have we? No. So, no, I agree. Something you mentioned when we first started about possible outgoings. And obviously, if we have any outgoings, we're going to need to replace them, aren't we?
Definitely.
So I think the first player that comes to mind for me that I think could possibly leave is Callum Robinson.
Yep.
About him not being happy with his minutes. And if he was to leave, that leaves us with obviously Salek and Isaac Davis. And we know that Barry Murphy sees Davis as a central striker, which he's admitted. But because of Salek and Robinson, Davis just hasn't had much of a chance there. But what do you think? If Callum Robinson was to leave, do you think we would need to get a new striker in? Or do you think that Davis could slot in there and you'd look in other places?
Yeah, I definitely think we need another forward. Salek is, I hope he's made of, he's made of strong stuff, but it takes a grind out on his body. And that you probably need that type of striker to have that physical, implementation during games, especially away from home. My worry is that, Isaac Davis, I love seeing him out wide simply because I feel like when that ball gets in behind, as we saw with the first goal against Doncaster, he's a master of it. He knocks it past them and he runs on and he gets a good quality delivery in there. And while he's playing well, cutting in off the left or the right, wherever he plays, I'd like to see him continue that way. Because I think he gets that sort of that freedom. Whereas if you're kind of turning as a central striker, we're back to goal. We've seen it with Salek. The centre halves will just come from behind you and smash you, and he's not the biggest of boys. So definitely I'd look at it. I mean, Callum Robinson, he scored against Stevenage, and it was good to see him score. He's a very streaky striker, as people have said, but he's not getting the volume of minutes probably and the starts that he'd want. And at the age that he is now, towards probably the latter part of his, his career, would somebody in the Championship, lower sort of mid-table, actually take a punt on him? We heard the rumour, didn't we, in the summer that apparently Wrexham were sort of sniffing around him. But he's a good player. He just probably needs consistently to be played. But Salek's getting the goals, isn't he? So why would you take Salek out of the equation?
Yeah, he is, and especially because we know BBM likes to get the ball right to the byline of the wingers, and Salek's naturally better in the air, and crossing the ball into the box is what I think he's trying to do. So yeah, I think if Robinson does go, and obviously we see Davis stay out on the left, possibly getting a striker with similar stature, similar aerial threat to Salek, so we don't have to change our game plan so much if we do make that change up top. Obviously, I think
the wingers is another one I'd like is another winger. I think yesterday, as we record this with the Doncaster game, and we've talked about it on various episodes before, where our best outlet probably is when our young quick wingers get in behind. They like Isaac Davis, like Kean Ashford. They use their speed, their work rate, their endeavour to get in behind. Yesterday, the general consensus was, and unfortunately, I'm going to mention the name of it, was there felt like a drop off on the left hand side with Willock, and that's that could be a numerous things. I'm speaking presumptuously here. There's a good player in there, but I think we need to have that speed consistently through the game, so there's no drop off, because I felt like yesterday at times when it got out to the left-hand side, the atmosphere changed a little bit, and the ball wasn't being hit in behind as much. It was kind of, we were going inside. And I know he's a different type of player to, say, a Kean Ashford or an Isaac Davis, but maybe we do look at getting that explosive winger in. We were linked with one, weren't we? Or apparently we'd inquired with one from the Swedish League, I believe it was this week. Yeah, which obviously was rebuffed by Brian Barry Murphy, but he does have knowledge of it. So whether he's just playing a bit of devil's advocate with that.
It's a weird player to have knowledge of if you haven't looked at him, innit?
Yeah, definitely. It's very football manager-like, isn't it? But there are areas that we probably could look at with the wingers, and especially with this high tempo, high press. It's a big demanding thing for the players, and slowly but surely, I think we're starting to see that. And the goals we're scoring, they're brilliant goals. And what like I said, is the key thing in January is to, for me, bring players in that already have a familiarity with a system like that, as opposed to bringing players in just because they're from a Chelsea or Manchester United or wherever it may be, and think, they must be good because they come from a big club. It takes them time to get acclimated to that. Get somebody that fits you like a new shoe. Your size. Get them in, so then there's no drop off, because last thing we want to do is lose momentum that we built up so well over the last month or so.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Especially about the January transfer window. Like if a player isn't up to speed and it's taking time to bed in, there's no point getting them in January, because we haven't got that time there to let them bed in. Which is case in point with Kellyman now. He's starting to come into his own, but he's taken just under half a season to come into his own and get his fitness back. So yeah, I think anyone that we're looking at in January needs to be fully fit and firing.
On the subject of Kellerman, whilst you just mentioned it, do you have any worries that now he's scoring, so he scored his second goal, that we may have one of those, we're going to recall him moments?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, from a Chelsea perspective, I think their reason for doing that would be if they wanted to loan him to, say, a championship club. Yeah. If they're thinking, let's up his level, similar that we did with Joel Colwell last season. And you couldn't blame them for that. So yeah, I've got to worry about it. But We know there's a link there between Brian Barry Murphy and Enzo Maresca. So let's hope he can pull some strings and beg at the feet of Enzo. And because I'd love him to stay for the rest of the season, because I think he's just going to get better and better.
Oh, I agree, mate. And hopefully, like I said, we've got Chelsea this upcoming Tuesday. Maybe he's in the ear of Enzo and offering him an extra cup of coffee or a nice bottle of bread from the office to say if there's any other players like Kellerman or just with Kellerman, please don't take him back, because I think we're starting to see now, like you said, his match fitness come back, and he's he seems to have been a very key part of that team, as we saw with the end of game where he was well and truly in with the team having a bit of handbags.
Yeah, definitely. Things you love to see, innit?
Yeah. That's good, Ellis. Like I said, fingers crossed, mate. In January, we're not a selling club. That's the key thing. Don't sell our best players. Let's keep our best players, our youngsters, because they're ours. And let's hope that I think we keep climbing that league.
Exactly. Well, onwards and upwards. Thank you for that, Jim. But we'll catch you again soon, guys. Have a good one.